disciplinary report?
It could be. I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know.
Well, at some point, whether this, and I think you testified yesterday from questions from Mr. Biagietti, that when you got the disciplinary report, it was confirmation of reliability as to what your source had told you.
Yes.
Even though the D report didn't support that there was a hand job or the conduct was way worse, right?
No, what Mr. Kenway was saying was that the incident was actually way worse than what was written in the D report.
And then you saw the D report, and it didn't make any mention of anything which would suggest a hand job, right?
He wasn't, just respectfully, Mr. Rich, he wasn't describing the D report, he was telling you that he had not.
But then you got the official disciplinary report, or you had the official disciplinary report, which was inconsistent with what Mr. Kenway was telling you, right?
Objection. I think the overrules this transact to explain whether the information generated
No, in fact, it confirmed there was an incident in November that she was written up for engaging in sexual acts, and this information about way worse was added.
Okay. I actually wanted to go back to the things. I think I found what I was looking for. On your chart, Exhibit 88, can you please identify for me on this chart, Trial Exhibit 88, where there is reference to a telephone call on May 11th to Mr. Lyman?
I never said it was a telephone call from myself to him. I don't recall who called whom.
Okay, well then let's look at Mr. Lyman's cell phone records. Where on May 11th in Mr. Lyman's cell phone record is there a telephone call to you?
I don't know. Where is it?
Mr. Lyman's cell phone records are Trial Exhibit 16. Actually, I take that back. Those are Mr. Kenway's cell phone records. So, is it 17? Oh, Trial Exhibit 17. And I can represent to you, Ms. Van Sack, but please do check that I couldn't find any telephone records of Mr. Lyman calling you on May 11th.
Yeah, just to save some time, we stand by that at least the cell phone record calls are accurately reflected in the chart.
So the chart doesn't reflect the documented call on May 11th
Via cell phone.
yourself.
You can have a long one as well.
Okay. So, just so we're clear, May 11th, conversation with DOC source number 2, you don't have a cell phone record of yours, and you don't have a cell phone record of Mr. Lyman, which supports the fact that there was a telephone call. No, there is no record.
No, there's no record. It could have been on a different call.
Now, did you have some other telephone to contact Mr. Lyman?
Yes, there's a landline, also known.
Mr. Lyman has a landline at work?
I have a landline, also known.
What about Mr. Lyman?
Yes, her phone. So, but he's entitled to ask if she had another phone number for Mr. Lyman or contact other than himself, which I think is the question.
Yeah.
I don't recall.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next page of your notes, which is 642. And we are coming to the end here. You remember oh, I'm sorry, tell me when you are on page, Trial Exhibit 89 and page 642, which I think is the fourth line down.
Oh, yes, I'm on page 642.
Oh, good. Okay. I'm sorry, I was waiting for you. I know we're back to flipping around a lot. You testified yesterday that, in response to Mr. Biagietti, that this reflects a note, that you left a note at Miss Marinova's house at 4 p.m. on the 27th of May. Remember that testimony?
Yes.
Even though there's no date on the note. even though when you testified about this note 3 years ago, you testified that you didn't know what date you left the note, right?
Yes.
So now we're 5 years later, and your testimony 3 years ago was you didn't know when you left the note, and yesterday you do, right?
Yes, I've been staring at these notes for 3 months constantly, so.
So, Ms. Van Stack, when you were deposed and placed under oath 3 years ago, you didn't think it was necessary or appropriate to search your mind about when certain things had happened? You only did that for this jury?
I certainly did search my mind.
But 3 years ago, you couldn't remember, but yesterday you could. 5 years after the fact. Now, you would agree with me that this note, left note 4 p.m., is virtually identical to the note that you wrote on the front of your envelope, your manila envelope, which is 3 pages from the back of Trial Exhibit 89. Note left 4 p.m., right?
Yes,
And that was a note that you left on, you said, on Monday.
yes,
But this is a separate note, you say. Now, lastly on this page, there's a reference to no answer, Marinova phone, 288-4917. So does that reflect your attempt to call Ms. Marinova at work and receive no answer?
it says message underneath me,
Where does it say that?
MSG.
Well, I must not have that on my copy here.
Are the
She's
other
still-
pages?
I think she's still on the prior page.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on the 642. Are we on the same page? I'm not on the manila folder page. I'm on the page, this page.
Yes,
Is there a note that says message?
no, sir.
Okay, so let's resituate ourselves, and again, it's me, because I'm flipping around a lot. Page 642, you wrote, no answer, Marinova phone, 288-4917, right?
Yes.
Do you remember when you made this phone call and there was no answer at Trespass TV?
No, sir.
And I think you testified that you left a message.
I did leave a message. It says,
Okay, but here it says no answer.
yeah, and on the other page, Mr. Rich, it says that I left.
Okay, so is that a separate phone call or the same one?
I believe it's likely a separate phone call.
Okay. When did you make that phone call?
My best recollection is that this phone call reflects the phone call in my cell phone record.
Okay, so that's the 1-minute telephone call on May 12th.
The voicemail.
That doesn't say voicemail, it just says no answer.
It says message.
I think we're talking past each other, but maybe we'll just leave it at that. Let's go to the next, let's go to page 643, okay? This is a note that you took after the article was published,
Yes,
and instead of referring to confidential source 1 or confidential source 2, you just write Mr. Kenaway.
yes,
So he was an on-the-record source for certain parts of your story and a confidential source for others?
he had, at that point, if I recall correctly, already given an interview on the record to the Boston Globe, and I asked him to extend me the same courtesy.
Okay. And so he was a confidential source for you on May 28th, but on May 29th, he was an on-the-record source for the same story. Yeah.
No, sir, I don't know which date this note was written in.
Oh, sometime shortly after May 28th, he was an on-the-record source.
I wouldn't even go that far, sir, because I don't believe that this ever made its way into an article.
Well, then let me ask it a slightly different way. Prior to May 28th, he told you you couldn't use his name as an on-the-record source.
That was our understanding.
And then after May 28th, he told you you could.
At some point after
note says they gave him a